We have a great program in store for you this morning, so we're going to get right to it. Any questions that anybody would like to submit to the candidates, there is a fishbowl at the registration table. You can fill out an index card, put that index card in the fishbowl, and we'll hand it on over to the moderator to ask the candidates. That fishbowl will close, the question will close in about 7 minutes. So you have 7 minutes to go in the back and fill out a question if you'd like to. At this time, I'd like to welcome the West Springfield Mayor, Will Reichelt. He will be the MC for the morning, and our moderator will be Mr. Bob McDonald. Will, thank you for joining us this morning.
All right, thank you. I'll be brief since I'm running unopposed and no one really wants to hear from me. But anyone that played in the Mayor's Cup yesterday, thank you for helping Westside win the trophy. Very nice to bring that back. And here it does say, I have a nice little script. Here it says, I'll say a few brief words. I just want to thank the business community in general and the Chamber specifically for the help you provide me the past year and a half. If you've been paying attention and see what we do over in Westside, it's been a lot of fun. Had a lot of great experiences. I started here in Agawam actually for 2 years. I got to know some of the candidates and work here as the attorney, so I brought that back. We've done a lot of fun things. I'm glad I get a free ride these next 4 years. But I want to make one announcement. We first made it last week at the Big East Community Breakfast with former Mayor Sullivan. I don't know if he's here somewhere. But we are working a sister city partnership, and we're going to be using the Chamber to expand opportunities across the pond. And we're going to work with Dingle, Ireland. So hopefully we'll be going there soon to formalize that sister city relationship and get the Chamber involved and make sure we can expand opportunities for everyone. So now to the script. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the generous sponsors of this morning's event. Our premier sponsor, OMG, preferred sponsors, United Bank, CHH Engraving, and East Hampton Bank. And will representatives of these businesses please stand to be recognized? This morning's program will follow the following format. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening remarks. The first half of the debate will be questions submitted by the public and Chamber members. Responses are limited to 2 minutes. The second half of the debate will be a Lincoln Douglas style. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask the other candidate a question. Responses are limited to 2 minutes, and rebuttals are limited to 30 seconds. Each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks at the conclusion of the debate. And now I'd like to introduce the 3 mayoral candidates for Agawam. Mr. Bob Chomby, Mr. James Cicchetti, Mr. Bill Sabelli. I'm now going to turn the program over to Mr. Robert McDonald, who will be our moderator for this morning's program.
Thank you, Mayor Will. Appreciate the remarks. So good morning, gentlemen. We're here for the debate this morning for the office of mayor in Agawam. We're going to start with opening remarks, and Bill Sapelli, you go first.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Western River Chamber for this opportunity, and I'd like to thank all of you for getting up so early and being here with us this morning. My name is Bill Sapelli, and I am a lifelong resident of Agawam. I'm a homeowner in Agawam, and I brought up my 2 children who went through the Agawam public schools. I've devoted 40 years of my life to the school system in Agawam, the last 6 serving as superintendent of schools, where I was responsible for 60% of the overall town budget. I also had 700 employees I was responsible for. I negotiated with 5 unions, and I ensured the safety of 4,000 students. My leadership skills, I think, differentiate me from my opponents. My extensive educational background, including my economics and business degree from St. Anselm's College, my financial expertise, and most importantly, I think my ability to unite groups of people to a common goal.
Thank you,
to make
Bill.
me the best candidate.
We
So,
appreciate
thank you.
your remarks. Thank you. Next opening statement will be by Vac Chomani.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Vac Chomani, and I wanted to thank all of you guys for being here. And I have never seen a lot of you guys here before, but I'm glad you guys are here, and I'm glad you guys taking your time out to be here. I appreciate it so much. And a little bit about myself, I actually have a college degree in computer science. I own a business here. I'm a local resident. I own a boxing school. I left United Healthcare here to pursue a dream, which is to give back to the community. I'm also a local resident that owns a property here that I've invested in this town of Agawam, and I love this town a lot, and I want to give back. I actually come from a world corporation that I manage about $200 million budget, and now I'm going to work for the town that's $900 million budget. And I'm going to do it really well, and I'm going to do a good job because I'm a hard worker. I believe in success with hard work and perseverance and learning and communicating with people. I'm here to listen to every resident here in Agawam, and I want to work with you guys.
Thank you, Vac.
Thank you.
Next opening statement will be from Jim Cicchetti.
I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this event and thanking my two opponents for attending this event and all you wonderful people for being here also. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Jimmy Cicchetti, candidate for mayor. I've been born and raised in this community, lifelong resident. I've attended our Agawam schools. Also, I am a small business owner up on Springfield Street. I own Cicchetti Teamwork and Sears Real Estate, which is a commercial and residential small business. I've also been fortunate enough to be your city councilor for the last 8 years. And for 2 of those last 8 years, I've been your council president. I'm the only candidate up here this morning with both the experience of being a small business owner and also having experience in municipal government. So with that being said, I do look forward to being your next mayor of Agawam, and thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we're going to move on to the question portion of the program, and Vac, you'll get the first question. First question is, how will you, as the new mayor, bridge the gaps with the town council as the previous administration and council seem to always be at odds?
Well, first being, coming from a fresh perspective, I think that's going to help a lot establish a good relationship. Because since I'm new and I don't have any ties in with any, contract workers or unions within the town, I'm going to make the best candidate for that. Coming from a fresh eyes, fresh ears, talking to people that haven't met me with new ideas, and I'm going to listen to the people. I'm going to work with the council like I've been watching over the years, and I'm going to help reestablish that gap. And I'm going to create a unifying team, just like I did in the corporation world. So I'm going to create meetings, I'm going to listen to the people, and we're going to work together with that sense. And it's not that hard. I find that that could be a simple task, and I have done it before.
The next question will be for you, Jim. What are your specific plans for Agawam's economic development during your term as mayor?
Thank you, Bob. With that being said, the question is building the economic development of this community. From having the background of being a small business owner and also having the experience of being on the council, one thing we definitely need to do is keep our business and our residential tax rate down. For the last 4 years, I have supported the business tax rate from the shift that the mayor's given us, and also we also need to create a marketing plan out of our planning department to market the city to businesses coming into this community. We need to increase our revenue. We need to increase jobs in this community. Just need to get out there and market the city of Agawam to the surrounding communities and to the state of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Bill, next question's for you. We're going to ask the audience, though, please hold your applause. We'll give everybody a big round of applause at the end. I think it's going to make things move faster. We appreciate that. Thank you. Bill, what are your thoughts on selling the town hall to a private developer and potentially building a new town hall on Games and Lane site?
I think there's a lot of concerns with residents with regard to the lack of handicap accessibility to the town hall. There's no question if you want to visit the mayor's office or personnel office, you can't even get upstairs because there's no lifts or elevators. So I think that's something that has to be undertaken. Obviously, we are in need for an adjustment at that city hall, whether it be a Games and Lanes site or another site. That particular site happens to be centrally located, so it may be a good choice. But I think something of that nature, once again, as was stated earlier, we have to unify our town government and get along, and what we need to do is get input from all the parties that, to weigh in on that decision. That's not a decision one individual should make. There should be input from a lot of people and a lot of different groups. But I think that does absolutely need to be addressed.
Vac, next question's for you. And we'll take one from the audience. Should Agawam spend $22 million to build an early childhood center?
That's a great question, and it's going to be, I'm going to leave it up to the people, because it's going to involve people with children, and I want to make it fair. So what I would do is this: I would actually put it on the forum and make sure people vote for it. It depends on the majority who votes for it and who doesn't, because we're kind of divided by people with family and people without the family. So I feel that people should be entitled to a fair hearing and a fair trial. So I would definitely put that on the ballot as well, so that way we'll work with the town on that issues.
Thank you, Vac. Next question for Jimmy. Tennis Road and Walnut Street Extension are constantly topics of discussion. Are you open to the possibility of more retail in Agawam? If not, what do you think the best use of those areas would be?
With that question, Bob, I think the best thing for the community is, yes, to attract new retail. Tennis Road was actually in front of the council before I got on the council, and I don't think it was promoted properly to the people. I think we could definitely do something with smart development up there to increase the amount of retail. Back to Walnut Street Extension, I think Walnut Street Extension isn't our hub that the mayor was trying to make it, to put $6 million into that street. It was just going to be infrastructure. It wasn't going to do anything to attract new business, in my opinion. So with that being said, that's where I stand on those two issues.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Next question for Bill. Every year, traffic and parking for both the Big E and Six Flags are an issue as homeowners open their homes as parking lots for those venues. Do you have any ideas of addressing the issues of seasonal parking and traffic?
Seasonal parking and traffic was an issue that did come up probably 10 years ago, both in regards to the area up by Six Flags as well as the area by the Big E. You have a situation now where there are specific ordinances. There were ordinance changes at the time that, as we all know, didn't go over too well with some of the residents, and that was an issue. I think what has to be done, as I said earlier, and I will continue to say all day and for the next few months, is you've got to get together with people to discuss these issues. These issues are compound issues. They affect different people. They affect business, they affect neighborhoods, they affect residents. And I think what you need to do is get all the parties together and come up with a solution that meets the best results for everyone included, but keeping safety in mind. There's safety regards with some of these issues as well, as we all know. But I think it's an issue that was on the table 10 years ago. There was a restriction for a year that caused a lot of problems. You've got to take a look at all the different aspects of it. When Big E wasn't allowed to have parking, the residents in Agawam weren't allowed to park on the property, there was traffic jams and issues because there was nowhere to put those vehicles because there wasn't enough room on the West Springfield side to do that. And I know West Springfield was pretty upset with it, as were the police. So we have to carefully look at that and decide what we want to do, make sure there's restrictions and safety precautions put into place, and make a decision on that.
Thank you, Bill. Next question is for Vac. The train that passes by Front Street over the Westfield River between Agawam and West Springfield can block traffic for a significant amount of time. This can become a major commuting issue. Do you have plans to work with the council to address this?
Yes, we should work together with that, because it does cause a havoc, because people are going to work. I think that would be troublesome as well. So time is an essence. And I will definitely address it by actually, redirect the traffic, or we work the road a little bit differently. But again, we're going to have to communicate with the people, the council, and the town planner as well too, which is the best strategy to use. So I would use the resources for that. And now that making it a part of my platform is also looking at, see if we can actually redevelop the blight ordinance as well too. If any towns that needs to change that, any buildings we can work with to establish a reroute, we can work with the town planner and use our resources efficiently. So that's how I would go about doing that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Vac. Next question for Jim. Based upon FBI crime statistics, SafeWise ranked Agawam the 33rd safest city in Massachusetts in 2014. In 2017, Agawam was not even in the top 100. Why do you think that crime has increased, and what will you do to work on ensuring that Agawam is once again one of the safest cities in the state?
Thank you, Bob. One of the ways that I will definitely address this issue is by working with our police chief and our safety officers in this community, including fire and EMT. One thing that I definitely feel that is an issue, and we've all talked about it, and I think many of you have seen my opiate plan that we need to address. I think that's why our community is maybe getting a little bit worse. A lot more break-ins recently, a lot more car break-ins, rims and tires being stolen off cars. I think what we need to do is just increase our police presence in the community, and the way that we would do that would be through our budget process, which we need a new budget approach, because we one of the only communities not increasing our police size. As Mayor Reichelt spoke earlier, he just, I believe, appointed 8 new officers to the police department over there. It's something I feel we definitely need to do here, is grow our police size. And I think by doing that and increasing our police presence will obviously increase our capability of being a safer community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next question for Bill. In 2016, HAP Housing purchased 12 acres on Mill Street to build a low-income housing project. Please state whether you support or oppose the project and what steps you will take to either promote or oppose it.
That particular project is something that's going to be in the works and something that the town has got to deal with in a number of ways. One thing that we always have to look at is, number one, we do need more affordable housing in town. Many of you are familiar with the 10% rule, and we're not at 10%. What we have to try to determine as a community, we have to try to get out in front of these issues. That's one issue that we've had years to deal with. We're aware of it, and we still didn't make any, address any plans to offer more affordable housing, which put us in the situation we're presently in. I think what we need to do, there's a perfect example of an area that probably is not conducive to a housing project because of the traffic, the schools being, the proximity of schools. You have Granger School a mile up one way, you have the high school only a half mile down the other way. It's a busy highway. With the fact that we don't have 57 phase 2 continued, there's a lot of traffic on that street. So I think what we have to do with these particular projects is, yes, we absolutely need more affordable housing in town, but we have to be a community that gets out in front of it, make sure that we have regulations, zoning, and issues put in place where we can control where they go. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next question for Vac. The town has approximately $1.2 million available in CPA funds. Do you have any projects planned for its use?
Well, yes. I actually support CPA because if it's used wisely, it works really efficiently. We need to really use that money wisely, and now that listen to the townspeople what they want to use that for, because it's their money. I think that could be debatable, whether you're going to use it by listening to the people. I'm going to leave it to the choice of the people, of the resident, because that's how I would deal with it, and that's how I would deal as part of my platform. That way, that can increase, that money can help increase the property value, is what I stand for the community, and that can also bring revenue as well too if we use it wisely and rebuild that. So I would definitely leave that to the resident, what they think, how they feel with it, and because it's their money, they should be able to use that. And that should be their choice. Let the people decide what they want to use their money for wisely, because as a local resident, I would do the same. I would want to see that option open for me. So that's where I would leave it with that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Vac. Next question for Jim, and this is going to be a question from the audience. How much money will you spend in the capital improvement plan?
Our capital improvement plan definitely needs addressing. I believe our last budget was around $7 million for the capital improvement plan. The amount that was spent, I feel Farley wasn't enough. Our infrastructure is in dear need of some help in this community with our streets, our sidewalks, and our sewer and stormwater management, as we'll be addressing in the next couple of months here. We do have some meetings coming up for stormwater management. I also brought in front of the council was a capital improvement planning committee, which was to increase transparency and also to bring a little bit more of a priority plan for what's the most important for the town. So again, we just need to get a little bit more organized, I think, with our capital improvement budget, and to actually start putting a little bit more money into that to do some of our capital items. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next question for Bill. Bill, how will you as the new mayor bridge the gaps with the town council, as the previous administration and council seem to always be at odds?
That's a good question, Bob. I fortunately have a very good relationship with the city council, as I do with the school committee, the state rep, and the state senator. As the superintendent of schools, I need to work with the council. They're the ones that ultimately approve my budget. And I've gone in front of them for the last 6 years as the superintendent, and prior to that 9 years as the assistant, to present a budget that, quite fortunately for me, that they always complimented my presentation, my transparency, and the way the budget was put together in a way that was easily understood. So I think one of the most important things a mayor has to do is cultivate relationships. Everything's about relationships. If you don't build relationships, then you have nothing. You can't get anything accomplished. Right now, I think that's one of the biggest problems in our town. People take things personally, they snipe at each other. There's no need and no room for that. That doesn't happen and didn't happen on the school side, and I hope I can bring those skills, my interpersonal skills, to the mayor's office and unite people. We don't always have to agree. I mean, if two people are always agreeing, one of them isn't thinking. Bottom line is, you do have to be professional, you have to be respectful of each other, and you can't take things personally. So I would encourage people, I would work at that and try to set a climate and an atmosphere, not only in town hall, but with all government officials, whether it's a state rep, state senator, DA's office, sheriff's office. I would get along with all those people. I do now, and I think I would just carry that over to the mayor's office as well.
Thank you, Bill. Vac, next question is for you. What are your specific plans for Agawam's economic development?
Well, I have a lot of ideas, to be honest with you. I can't share it right now, but I'll break it down to the simplest form, which is I did create a nonprofit community center that we can actually work together with. That's not part of the town. I'm saving the town's money. So I'd rather keep the money coming in and keep it growing and keep it locally here. And I would use it to get rid of buildings that's down, that needs to be rebuilt, restructured. Let's do away with all those. That is part of my platform. And let's bring in revenue into the town. So I'd love to see this town grow, and that's part of my platform. And keep the taxes low. And and the money's going to come in when you do that, because people want to live here when you see the the houses looking nice, the property looks up in shape. And business, small, unique business that we have here, I would rather help small business develop there. And that way we can attract business to come in and tap into the talents we have in Agawam. So those monies should be used for that sense, and keep the communications open, and keep redeveloping Agawam into a better place so we can live. And let's match our neighbors, like Long Meadow, East Long Meadow. Let's do better. I think we can match with them and make Agawam better in that sense, and use that money wisely. So those are the things that I would do, and keep the business growing, and keep the town home ownership property value going up. And that money should be used for that sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Vac. Next question is for Jim. What are your thoughts on selling the town hall to a private developer and potentially building a new town hall on Games and Lanes?
This was an idea that I've been speaking about for about the last 4 years. The current administration has not been very receptive to that idea. I think it's a great concept. From my retail background, you need an anchor. We need to bring people down to that area to increase the shopping area. I think it's something that we definitely have to roll our sleeves up and work with the owner over there. That's he's currently buying up everything around us. So it's something that we need to come up with a plan and stick to it and move the city forward in the correct direction, in a positive direction. As a leader in City Hall, that's something that I would be meeting with the planning department, meeting with the personal private developer that would be looking to do that, and to come up with a plan, because as was said earlier, our city hall currently is an ADA compliant. Right now, we have our two city halls separated. Basically, you have our DPW building up on Suffield Street, and our current main city hall is down on Main Street. I mean, it's not very conducive for builders. It's not very conducive for people looking to open up new businesses. You know, you got to run back and forth between the two buildings. I mean, I think we need to be in one local area, and I think that's a great spot down there, and it would be good to build the businesses down in that area also. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next question for Bill. Bill, how much money will you spend in the capital improvement plan?
The capital improvement plan is something that's concerned me over the years because it's referred to as a wish list, and it should not be a wish list. How much money would I spend? That would be contingent on how much money that the town and the city council and the mayor's office feel they should spend. Right now, as it was pointed out earlier, there's $7 million. What are the projects that need to be done? Each year that should fluctuate depending on what needs to be done. We keep talking about a new town hall. We also can talk about a police station. We could have a complex that includes, as was just stated, getting all those different offices together. The one up on Suffield Street, the one at Main Street, and the police station could be incorporated into that. But when you're looking at a capital improvement, you have to get input from a lot of different people. The city council has their eyes and ears to the residents because they're out there in neighborhoods. They hear what the needs are. The schools have their needs, the police have their needs, the fire have their needs. Capital improvement is a culmination of all these groups getting together, getting input from them, and prioritizing your list, but not just having it sit on a desk somewhere. Oh, we have a capital improvement, we're all set, we've done that, check that off. That's what we seem to do around here. Create documents and get that off our checklist and do nothing, and there's no follow-up. Capital improvement plan should be a living, breathing document that's real, not a wish list. So depending on the year and the needs, that money should fluctuate. But that should be a decision made by a group of individuals that have knowledge and background information, not just the CEO or the mayor. They need to know how to rally the troops and get that information and come together as a united front and present it properly.
Thank you, Bill. Next question for Vac. Vac, based on the FBI crime statistics, Safewise ranked the 33rd safest city in Massachusetts in 2014. In 2017, Agawam was not even in the top 100. Why do you think that crime has increased, and what will you do to work and ensure that Agawam is once again on the safe cities?
I think crime is going to be everywhere. And I think it's going to be up to us to be very well informed. You know, that's what we stated previously, that you know, we're going to work with our local school system, work with our cops, work with our firefighters, work with local business as well. And we don't want to leave the local business out either, because they can make a lot of impact as well too, because they drive a lot of local business, local people here. So, and that's an excellent question for me, because that's why I developed a community center for Agawam, a nonprofit, with education and having a resource where people can go as one and meet and learn about our community. That will ensure that we're going to be solid with that part of it. And that's going to help the community out. Once we open up the communication and teach our people what crime is, identify it, work with the local police, support each other on that, and I think we can bring crime down. I mean, I don't see why Long Meadow doesn't have a high crime, because they keep well informed. We can do the same. I don't see any issues with that if we work together with every part of the business, the school system, the law enforcement. Everybody's got to pitch in, especially the residents got to speak out as well. Once we identify it, once we work with everybody, we will know and we will keep the crime down that way. So, excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you, Vac. Next question for Jim. Jim, should Agawam spend $22 million to build an early childhood center?
This has been a hot topic actually in town for the last few years. I actually visited the Early Childhood Center just recently, and we definitely have to do something. I don't think, you know, building a brick and mortar new building is the way to solve that issue. I think we need to come up with an issue working with our school department and our town and correcting the issues that are up there. So at this time, I really don't feel, building a $22 million building is the answer to that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next question for Bill. Bill, what do you think is the major problem in Agawam, and what is its solution?
The major problem in Agawam. That's an excellent question, Bob. It can go in a lot of directions, but I'm going to go right back once again to the fact that I don't believe government is functioning the way it should be right now. I think we have too many people in government presently that are taking an approach that it's about them instead of about the residents, quite frankly. I think people are taking a stand. There's some, I've talked to people that said, hey, I'm going to tune into some of the town meetings this week because it's entertaining. It shouldn't be entertaining to the degree that they're talking about. Watching people snipe at each other, watching people be unprofessional, not being able to accomplish things because you can't get two people to be professional and agree on something. I think before we move forward with anything, whether it's housing, whether it's blight, whether it's solar farms, if we don't get our act together as a group to govern properly and agree to disagree and be able to walk away from the table and say, okay, I didn't agree with that person, but I respect their position, and we need to pull together and be a united front for the residents who put us in here. We're not going to be in here too long. And I think that's why you see a lot of people talking about change. They're talking about change because I think they're fed up with the fact that people aren't thinking of the rank and file of all the residents. They're thinking selfishly of themselves and what's in it for them, and that's got to stop. People have got to be more professional and treat people fairly and get government done by working together and not necessarily agreeing on every single topic.
Thank you, Bill. Next question for Vac. Vac, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's Agawam's biggest problem and how are you going to solve it?
Well, every town has a biggest problem. It depends on how you define the biggest problem. I'm not going to go talk in circles because every issue can be the biggest problem. It's how we look at it and how we perceive it. And that's what we got to look at. You can't say this and that is big problems. It all depends on the issues and what the time matter is. So right now, we really don't have a lot of big issues in our town, only concerns with the citizens. And, I'm going to reflect back to my platform and be honest with you. Those are the big issues that I see, which is blight ordinance, keep our tax low. Those are always the issues that we're going to face all the time. So those are what the factors are we're going to look at, And actually, also the biggest issue can be our biggest resolver. Like a biggest help, they can bring a change as well too. So it all depends on how you look at it, and that's where I will leave it at that. Because it's hard to describe every single thing, and we don't have time to describe every little thing, but we work with it and push through with it and make it a positive and a learning experience. I think that's how we're going to solve our biggest issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Vac. Jimmy, what do you think the biggest problem in Agawam is and how will you solve it?
I feel our biggest issue in this community is the lack of leadership. I feel the leadership that we currently have in our administration is just very combative. I think we need to bring all sides to the table to discuss and communicate and to work together. I think one thing that from knocking doors and working in the community is people are really, really looking for change. They're looking for communication. One thing that I've been talking about through our campaigning process here is creating neighborhood commissions. And the reason for that is for people to bring back the issues in their neighborhoods. Let's deal with each individual item as one at a time and to work at them. And I think if we do that by creating more communication, more accessibility to the mayor's office, and a strong leader in the mayor's office, I think everything else will fall into place and we can deal with whatever we need to deal with and we will overcome anything that we have put in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Bill, what does your first 100 days in office look like?
My first 100 days in office look like sitting down with individuals, getting out to the different departments, calling department meetings and letting them know that we are going to be meeting on a regular basis to stay in touch, to set goals, objectives, and those goals and objectives better reflect the budgets that they start submitting when it comes this fall. when they start formulating their budgets. I think, once again, as I said earlier, it's all about communication, it's all about being visible, it's all about being out there. You, as the CEO of the town, the mayor, your biggest attribute that you can bring to that office is your skill to unite people. As superintendent, let me tell you something. I was responsible for the math department, but I absolutely know nothing about advanced calculus, okay? But I don't have to, because that's not my job. My job is to make sure those people, in that case the math department, got all the tools, resources, the budget they need to get their job done, and to make sure they were evaluated properly and there was accountability. So in that situation, I think that's what's important. In the first 100 days, get people to know who you are, get people to know you care. I've had more people tell me that, you know what, Bill, we're glad you're running, and we're glad you're running for this reason. Morale stinks, it's terrible. We look at the school side, it seems like people are happy to be there. Yes, it's a job, but when they go to work, they seem to enjoy what they're doing, and they feel supported. I've talked to them. We live in this community with teachers and administrators, and they feel you have their back. We don't feel that way on the town side. And that's simply, once again, getting along with people, letting them know where you stand, letting them know that you support them, and if they need something, you'll be there for them. And if they're not doing their job, they're going to be called on the carpet for it in a proper way. So I think that's what I do my first 100 days.
Thanks, Bill. This will be the last question each of you will answer. So, Back, you're going to go first. Why are you uniquely qualified to be the mayor of Agawam?
That's a good question. And it's about time somebody asked me that question.
You're welcome.
My uniqueness is this. I actually came from a world of nothing. When I came here, I came with a pair of pants and a t-shirt and a sandal to the United States. And I actually didn't speak English. And we didn't almost, say a lot because of food we couldn't eat. But I made something of myself. I rebuilt myself, revamped my character, and I actually went to college, got a 4-year degree in computer science, went to work for a huge corporation with United Healthcare. I love the company. And when I fulfilled my career, I made a promise years ago when I was 5 years old when I came to this country, I'm going to give back to America. And in order to do that, I'm going to make something great about myself. I'm going to revamp myself, and I'm going to rebuild and restructure myself into somebody great that I think that I could be. And so I dream a big dream, which is I left United Healthcare to get back to Agawam, and I reinvested in this town. So I love this town. I fell in love with the people, fell in love with the property, fell in love with the business, and I love my students. I picked a unique career, which is boxing, which is to get the kids back in shape. And not only that, I set a nonprofit up for the Agawam Community Center. That's never been done before. So that is how I'm giving back. The 5-year-old kid that made a promise is reliving that. I own a business in Agawam. I learned a lot from there. I learned about the people, the location. I learned about so many things that I didn't even learn. I learned about the kids here. I learned about the adults.
Thank you.
So for me, giving back is going to be important. I want to work for the people here. I want to give all I got, and I'm going to give it more than that. I'm going to give more than 100%, and you can count on that. So it is a dream that I'm going to relive, and I'm going to make it possible. So thank you for that question.
Vac Chomani, Agawam business owner, we appreciate your thoughtful answer on that question. Next question, Jimmy, same question. Why are you uniquely qualified to be the mayor of Agawam?
Thank you, Bob. Obviously, as Vac said earlier, this is a question that we hear on the street quite a bit. One of the ways that I'm going to address this question is just my drive and my experience to work towards from the bottom up. I mean, when I first got into retail as a kid, started as a part-time sales associate, worked my way up all the way to an assistant sales manager. Moved on to real estate, started out as a part-time real estate agent, and here I am today as an owner of a thriving real estate business here in town. Same thing with the council. 8 years ago, I had my council papers out, also had my mayor papers out. I say, something, I need to get the experience and I need to get the knowledge that I need to be successful in government. And this is where I'm at today. Started out as a counselor, progressed to a city council president, working with 10 other fine young ladies and gentlemen, and trying to move the town in the right direction. And now here we are, like I said, running for the office of mayor. I think my uniqueness to communicate, to bring people together, to be accessible, and to hold people accountable is my uniqueness that is going to make me a successful mayor. Thank you.
Jimmy Cicchetti, City Council President, we appreciate your thoughtful answer. And the next question will be for Bill. And Bill, it's the same question. Why are you uniquely qualified to be the mayor of Agawam?
Thank you for that question, Bob. It's almost like that's a question I would have submitted, so check that handwriting. I'm uniquely qualified because I've been running the school district for the last 6 years. I've run a budget that's, as I stated earlier, 60% of the overall 90 million town budget. I have 700 employees that work for the school department that I'm responsible for, negotiated with 5 unions, and was responsible for ensuring the safety of 4,000 students. I lived and worked that particular leadership role. I have those leadership skills. It's been proven. I've had evaluations that were done in public. I opted to have my evaluations publicly put on television. You can go in and tune into those evaluations, and I wasn't ashamed to have it put out there, good, bad, or indifferent. But if you were watching the last several years, those evaluations came out in a variety of categories: organizational skills, leadership, budgeting. Came out exemplary in every category. I think with me, what you see is what you get. I grew up here in this town. You all know me. I see you every day in the supermarkets, on the ball fields. I started as a substitute teacher and a coach, advanced to a teacher, an assistant principal, then principal, then assistant superintendent. I started at the bottom, worked my way up. Nothing came easy. Who does that today? Who stays 40 years with one organization, in this case the school system? I'm committed. I'm committed to Agawam. I went away to school in New Hampshire. I came back home to Agawam because it's home, to live my life here, raise my family here. That's why I think I have those leadership skills.
Bill Sapelli, former superintendent of schools, we appreciate your thoughtful answer to that question. And now the audience, if you give them a big round of applause for their... Now we've concluded the questions by me part of the program, and so now we're going to go to the Lincoln Douglas debate portion of the program where the candidates will ask each other questions. So for the candidates' review, I'm going to review the rules and also so the audience is familiar with what we're doing here. So the candidate will have 30 seconds to ask a question to another candidate. I will direct you as to who to ask that question to. The yellow card will go up when you have 15 seconds left to ask the question. The red card will go up when you're going to conclude your question. The person that you've asked the question to, the responding candidate, will have 2 minutes to respond. The yellow card will go up when that candidate has 30 seconds left of that 2 minutes to respond. The red card will go up. You'll be done with your answer. And then, of course, in the Lincoln Douglas part of a debate, the original question asker has an opportunity to rebut. If they choose to rebut, they'll have 30 seconds of rebuttal time, and the yellow card will go up 15 seconds into that rebuttal time, and the red card will go up when you're finished. A little confusing, but I will help you get through this, trust me. It's all going to be very simplistic. Okay, so this tends to go fast, so we'll start, and as previously determined in a meeting between the 4 of us, Vac, you're going to ask the first Lincoln Douglas debate question to Jim.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cicchetti, why do you want to be mayor?
Thank you, Vac. I want to be mayor because of how much I care about this community. I want to be mayor because I've had both experience in the private sector and also in the municipal sector of the government of this city. I've been involved in this town since I was a little boy. I played baseball, I played football, attended our school systems. I continue to work with the kids in the town. I'm coached Little League Baseball, I've coached soccer. I have a lot of friends in this community. I'm here to be the leader of this community. I want to be the leader of this community because I want to bring this community forward. I think over the last few years, we've stayed stagnant. We're not moving forward. We're not progressing with the times. I feel our town is better than that. I feel we can do better in this town. when I was a little kid, one thing I've always used as an analogy is you could have picked this town up and put it on a deserted island and never skipped a beat. You had plenty of entertainment, you had plenty of retail in this town, and you had movies in this town, golf courses, we had Riverside, the whole 9 yards. I just think I'm ready. I've been on the council for 8 years, and I have the experience to work with the small business community as being a small business owner, and the experience of the private sector. I've worked in the private sector. I've now worked in the government sector of this community. So that being said, that's why I'd like to be mayor of this town.
Zach, do you wish to use rebuttal time?
Well, I became a mayor for a reason, and I wanted to make a difference in the town. Like I said, I want to keep the tax low because I'm a local resident. That's why I want to become mayor. I want to maintain that stability. And know that I want to make a difference in the town by giving back as well too. Creating a nonprofit organization called the Agawam Community Center. And also, I want to see this town in great shape. I want to endorse the blight ordinance. Those are the things that I'm looking forward to make a difference here. And that's how, the reason why I'm also wanting to be mayor.
Thank you, Vac. So now we're going to go to the second question. Jim, you'll ask your question to Bill.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Sapelli, the question I have for you this morning is, do you support the current initiative calling for creation of a recreation master plan? And if so, what do you think is the most pressing recreational need in Agawam?
I do support the creation of a recreational plan, but as I stated earlier, what I see happen a lot in this community, and that's got to change, is that we set up these plans, we set up committees, we produce documents based on data and research, and then there's no follow-up. So I think that's crucial, that we use that plan as a living, breathing document and implement it and have an action plan to follow up with it. One of the things I think Agawam needs is we've done a pretty good job with getting our parks in shape. We've got a beautiful setup down there at School Street now, and they actually were able to move the facilities that they used to hold at Phelps School down to the School Street Park, and that's wonderful. And you look at some of those different opportunities that we have in the Agawam proper area, but Feeding Hills seems to be getting slighted. And I think what we need to focus on, and I'm sure that plan will do that, is to take a look at the Feeding Hills area. There is some parcels up there that the town does in fact own. We have to start looking at creating some opportunities for those people up at the Feeding Hills area as well as we have in the Agawam area. But once again, if we are going to form committees and if we're going to develop and establish and do research to create documents, let's follow through with those documents and make them real.
Jim, would you like rebuttal time?
Yes, thank you. Bill, the plan that we currently are working on, the recreational study plan, was brought forth by myself and our recreational committee. This was pulled out of our open space plan that we had. So, as you said, this is stuff that we need to do, is work on plans and to continue working on them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to our third question. Bill, you'll ask your question to Vac.
Vac, I understand that you worked in healthcare and you have a responsibility for budgets. How would you approach the budgeting in Agawam?
Great questions, Mr. Kelly. I looked at the budget and I'm kind of puzzled by it because it's not transparency enough for the local resident to understand. I actually talked with Laura Plizek, our treasurer. When I talked to her, I asked her a couple questions, what are the terms, the definition meaning. And I looked at other towns as well too. I saw other towns put like glossary in there to help to explain to the local resident, how the budget should look at. When I look at the budget, it's very confusing, but it's been wrote by the same person over and over again, but it's never explained to the local resident like myself. So I would translate it a little different so it's easier to read, easier for the public to understand because it's their money. It's not the person that writing the budget's money, it's our money. And it should make it more presentable to us to look at it. And that is how I would solve that problem. Thank you.
Bill, would you like rebuttal time?
I'm just concerned about the fact that there are some discrepancies in the budgets in the town with regard to carryovers, there seems to be a need for more training, if you will, or accountability with regard to allocating funds appropriately. So I just think that's an important issue to deal with for anyone who becomes mayor.
Zach, it's your turn to ask Bill a question.
Thank you. Mr. Spelli, why do you want to be mayor? Thank you.
I've had that question a lot, quite frankly. People say, Bill, you've been 40 years in the school system, you could retire, why don't you just retire? And of course, we both laugh. And I tell them, I said, well, first, I'm a little crazy, obviously, if you know me. But secondly, I said, I still have a lot of energy. I think I have a lot to offer. I have a skill set that I think just lends itself to that position. I've lived here my whole life, which you've heard me say already, and I care about this community. I really do. I mean, as corny as it may sound. I went away to St. Anselm's College out of Agawam High School. I graduated from Agawam High School, went to St. A's. Many of my friends stayed up there. They set up their families up there. They obtained jobs up there. I wanted to come back home to Agawam because it is home. Agawam's always been special to me. It always will be. My family, my 2 children went to the Agawam schools and grew up in Agawam as well. I have friends and family here. I'm proud of Agawam. And right now, I see Agawam in dire need of big changes. And I think, and I'd like to try to help make those changes. I think I can do that. I've had people tell me that. I've had people tell me, thank God you're running for mayor. We appreciate it. We think you can do the job. You know the people, you know the players, you know the community. It's a perfect fit for you. If you can put up with some of the nonsense, you'll be able to do it. I said, I referee ice hockey, I can put up with a lot. So that's why I'm running for mayor. Because yes, I could just retire and go away, but I care too much about Agawam. I think we need some help right now, and I think I'm the individual that can supply and offer that help and have the skill set to do that.
Zach, would you like to have rebuttal time?
Yes. Another part of the reason why I'm running for mayor is also, you know, I'm happy to be here, and I'm grateful to be here, and I want to work with the community, and I want to work with the people, and I have a lot of energy. I'm a hard worker. I'm not going to give up. I never will be giving up to anything or anybody, and I want to work hard and rebuild my investment here. This is where all my money and gold and diamonds are located, in this property here in Agawam. Thank you.
Jim, it's your turn to ask Zach a question.
Oh.
Mr. Shoname, your question this morning is, do you believe that there is an opiate addiction crisis in Agawam? And if so, what is your plan to combat the crisis?
Thank you, Mr. Cicchetti. That's an excellent question. And that's everywhere. Again, that's generalizing it at the same time as well, too. You know, like one of my platforms is build a community center for the Agawam, you know, resident here is great. That's how we're going to keep it low, keep the crime, keep the drugs low, by having a central location where everybody can feel they can come and keep the communication alive. And that's a central place. And the training could be done there as well, too. And that's how that problem will be resolved that way, and keep it low, because that's everywhere. We can't control people, what they take, but we can help them by education and knowledge, and you know, working with the individual as well, too, and work with everybody in the community, and let them know that, you know, the drugs are, and where they're coming from, and where they're located, by having places like community center where they can go and feel free to be educated and keep informed. So I think that will play a big role in that. So thank you.
Jim, rebuttal time?
Thank you, Bob. Our opiate crisis that we currently are dealing with, not just in Agawam, it's a national, a state. We first need to make the first step in my plan is to admit we have a problem. Then we need to work with the community and to come up with a solid plan and to bring all the parties to the table and to combat this issue head on. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, it's your turn to ask Jim a question.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Cicchetti, you spoke earlier about the mayor's office and how there's lack of leadership in the mayor's office, and that's one of the biggest problems in town. You've been the president of the city council in a leadership position for the last 2 years and on the council for the last 8 years. What do you see as a way of making some change to turn that around?
Thank you, Mr. Savelli. That's a great question. As I stated earlier, if and once I become mayor, it's to bring all the parties together. As being council president, I've had my fellow council members, we've held workshops together. We've tried to work up different plans. As a leader, I brought up different initiatives for the council and driven these things home. They obviously don't always go through the council because, like we said, everyone's got some different ideas and plans. But as mayor, I would keep working hard, keep fostering those relationships, driving home the route of communication, and just building the relationships and really work towards the common goal of being a leader.
Bill, rebuttal time?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I do have some concerns, as you just stated, in that as president of council and being leader of the council, they don't always get along, and it's tough to get things done. But as the person as president in charge of the council, I would hope that you could have pulled those people together and at least as a united front address some of the issues in a more expeditious fashion.
So for the next 3 questions, we're going to mix it up just a little bit. So the next 3 questions, each question each person asks, you can ask anybody you want the question. Rather than me telling you who you're going to ask the question of, you get to decide who you're going to ask the question to. So Vac, it's your turn. You're going to ask the question. You can either ask it to Jim or to Bill. Just let us know who it is.
Mr. Cicchetti, I know that HAP came to the town, and I was wondering, you know, a lot of people were saying that, you know, they didn't get heard at all. Why weren't the other side of the voice of the other people on the other side of that are against HAP wasn't heard at all?
Mr. Chalamet, I think you're referring to the HAP project up on Mill Street. We did have a forum up at the senior center for those people to express their concerns for that. I met with some of the neighborhood members up there. I'm actually the chair of our housing committee from the council, from my retail and background of being in real estate. One thing that we need to do up there is, again, as you've heard here already today, there's a mandate by this state of Massachusetts that we need to be at 10%. We're currently at 4%. I've been one of the driving forces from the council and from our housing committee to produce a housing production plan which is accessible to everybody in the community. Anybody can feel free to access it. One thing we definitely do need to do on the affordable housing is we need to get to that 10%. We're currently working with the mayor's office. We just sent the mayor a letter. I've actually got a meeting later on this week with him to go over a little bit more in depth with some of the things we need to do. Our housing plan is actually a plan that we're utilizing, we're working with. We need to be more proactive in this area of this town. We need to keep our affordable housing for first-time home buyers, for our senior citizens of the community. We need to keep these things. There's many community members in this community working in our government that they qualify because of the income limits for the housing. It's just something that we definitely need to work with. We need to get everyone, again, to the table and to communicate and to come up with a good, solid plan and to have a common goal, and that common goal is to get to 10%. Thank you.
Jack, would you like rebuttal time?
Thank you. I believe with communication being open, I think we will have a better strategy that way. That way we can hear both sides, that it's for and against, to make it fair. I'm not against half housing, but the process was definitely broken a little bit, where communication was lacked there. But none of that, maybe in the future we should have, be proactive in zoning. That way we can, have both sides here fair and square. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, so it's your turn to ask a question to whomever you wish.
This question is for Mr. Sapelli. Mr. Sapelli, what is your position regarding the fact that the state has exempted the new MGM Springfield Casino from the happy hour rules, and they're allowed to serve alcohol until 4 a.m.?
I have a huge concern with something like that because you're not immune to having people come over the bridge and come into Agawam for a variety of reasons after that happens. It creates problems for us, as there are going to be other issues with regard to casinos. I think that's a concern that needs to be addressed. I think we have to be proactive once again. I have a concern also about our zoning and to make sure we get out in front of things that are going to be related to the casino. For instance, I think you're going to see, which we don't have presently, but an influx of things like pawn shops. When people are desperate for money, they're going to start pawning off their jewelry or things of that nature, and they're going to need pawn shops. So pawn shops will be popping up all over the place if we don't get out in front of that and set up an overlay, a zoning overlay, where if they do come in, we can control where they go and make sure we're protecting our community. But once again, we can't wait till this happens like we do on so many issues in Agawam. Wait till something already happens, then we come up with a plan after the fact, and we're trying to play catch up. We're constantly being reactive instead of proactive. So I think that's one issue, the fact that they're going to be able to afford, but there are many, many other issues that are going to come around with regard to these casinos. As I just mentioned, one other very important one that's maybe even, in my mind, more important than the one that was just brought up.
Jim, rebuttal time?
Yes, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mr. Sapelli. I think we have three definite issues with this. One being safety, two being the taxpayers of our community, and also the business owners. We need to immediately proceed to reopen the mitigation agreement and renegotiate additional funding for staffing safety in our town and not let it fall on the shoulders of the taxpayer. I think the major concern of this issue is the safety aspect of it. You're going to have people leaving that casino at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and is that going to put a little bit more stress on our local police? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Bill, now it's going to be your turn to ask a question to whomever you like.
Mr. Cicchetti, during your tenure as a member of the City Council, there have been multiple task force committees, boards formed to address specific issues. What actionable items or measurable results can you cite as a result of these groups' efforts?
Thank you, Mr. Sapelli. One of the committees that we have formed through a resolution with Councilor Johnson was also part of this, was our housing committee. One thing that we're doing with that housing committee, again, is to protect the town from unfriendly 40Bs. Again, getting to that 10%, a lot of people have called it a race to 10%. This was, one committee that I sit on. We've produced a wonderful production plan. We just got to put that plan into place now. Another committee that I had sat on before was a chair of the safety committee. I met with, the police chiefs. I met with the fire chiefs. I met with some of the EMT gentlemen, and just worked hand in hand and tried to bring all these gentlemen to the table to work together. Thank you.
Rebuttal time, Bill?
Yes, I'm familiar with some of those plans. We have a housing production plan, which is a nice thick document. We have a zoning review plan. We have an economic development plan. We have a zoning review plan. My point, I guess, is that we have all these plans, but as I stated in the question, actual items taken on these plans is a whole other issue, and I think we have to focus on that.
Okay, we're going to go back to the moderator directing who you'll ask the question to. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you you're passing the mic, right, Jim?
Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah, okay. You're looking at me with
I'm
that
just
mic. I didn't know what you were doing.
In between guy, Bob.
So, Vac, it's your turn to ask Jim a question.
Mr. Sapelli, I know about, a lot of people are wondering about this question. What will you do if you become mayor with the salary and the pension you have? Thank you.
That's an interesting question, Vac. Basically, what we do in life is we determine what we want to do with our career moving forward, whether we get out of high school, whether we get out of college, and you start setting your goals. I set my goal, quite frankly, on trying to get back to community. I had a lot of opportunities. I had a business and economics degree, as I said, from St. A's. I had a master's. I ended up getting a master's in education from AIC and an advanced graduate studies degree in educational administration from Westfield State College. And when I started as a coach and as a substitute teacher and then a teacher, I was making about $10,000. All my buddies from college were making 2-3 times that, getting commissions because they were in sales. But I decided that I wanted to look at the bigger picture. It's interesting, that someone would even go there. with an individual, because quite frankly, your retirement is your retirement. And there are many people that retire, especially in law enforcement. You see this a lot happen often, where they're at 50 or 55, whether they're in criminal justice, with regard to police, whether they're a corrections officer. They get out early, they don't stop working. Many of them start another career. And I think that's a good thing. If you have the energy, the expertise, you start another career. And that's a good thing.
Back, you want rebuttal time?
You know, I'm a hard worker. I believe in working hard. I believe you earn what you earn. But as a mayor, I would actually not care so much about the money. I would take whatever the town wants to give me. And I'd be honored with that, you know. But to be honest with you, it's my time to run for mayor. And that's the reason why I'm running, and I would run for free if I have to. Because that's what I'm giving back to the community. I'm not worried about the salary or anything at all. I'm worried about making the dream possible for Agawam, to make it real for them, like citizens like me, local residents.
Thank you, Vac. Jim, your turn to ask a question of Bill.
Mr. Stapelli, our next question this morning for you is, what do you believe is the most pressing capital need for Agawam?
The most pressing capital need for Agawam would be what the group of officials determine is the most precious capital need and important capital need for Agawam, not one individual. Everybody has their thoughts, but you have a group of people, town council, which you have to bring into the mix, school committee, which you have to bring into the mix, and the citizens we have to bring into the mix. I think the days of one individual making these important decisions has got to stop. There are many things that need to be done. Roads, sidewalks is one big thing we hear about all the time, and it's real. It's real. There's a plan out there. Is the plan being actualized? I don't believe it is. We have buildings that need to be done. We talked already about the town hall. We talked about the police station. We talked about an early childhood center. Those are all real items. Those should be on a capital improvement list. But what we need to do is have a short-range, mid-range, and long-range plan. But once again, not just develop the plan, but actually utilize the plan, put it into action. We have plans all the time. We have a short-term and a long-term plan in Agawam. We always do, because you're supposed to have it. It's a requirement. But we never follow through with anything. So more importantly, not so much what is my idea of what the most important pressing capital improvement is. That shouldn't be one individual's decision. Once again, you have to include people in decision making. That's where you win people over. That's where you have people wanting to live and have a business in Agawam, because it's not one individual making all the decisions.
Rebuttal time, Jim?
Yes, thank you, Bob. Mr. Stapelli, thank you for your answer. Back to what I spoke about earlier, I do have a capital improvement planning committee item that I brought in front of the council, and that was to bring the people together and create more transparency. So that being said, I think that's something that we definitely need to do and work together. But I feel that we definitely need to put infrastructure in the forefront of that capital improvement plan, and to also make it a priority. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, it's your turn to ask a question of Vac.
Mr. Choname, what do you see as the most significant issue facing our seniors, and what are your plans to address those issues?
Great question. I'm going to stand up for this one, because I'm going to represent my parents, because they're seniors, and I'm going to help them. I'm going to make sure they're going to live well. I'm going to make sure they're going to be able to travel. I'm going to make sure they have fun, because they're retiring. And none of that, they raised me. So I'm going to take care of them in return. I want to see something like, redevelop Meadowbrook Manor. Make it great for them, The senior center was great, but also make the condition of living as well to match the senior center. So that way they have both great places to go to. And on that, let's take care of our seniors, because I believe that strongly, and that's what I'm going to do with my parents, because they're in their 90s, and anybody over 60 I would take care of anyway. So it's just a matter of speaking. But thank you so much, and I appreciate that question. Very good.
Bill, rebuttal time?
Yes, thank you, Bob. A couple of most important things I found talking to the seniors is housing and transportation. These individuals in many cases do not drive any longer, which is probably a good thing in many cases. Thinking of my mom, who's going to be 93 next week. But I think transportation, getting to and from the campuses of Mercy Hospital and Bay State for their appointments and shopping, that's important. I think we have to address some of those issues with transportation.
Vac, your turn to ask a question to Jim.
I don't have any questions. I'm going to pass. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, your question to Vac.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Shawnee, do you believe that Agawam zoning ordinances need to be changed? And if so, please share at least one area that you believe needs to be changed.
Zoning is a good question. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Talking about zoning is good because we should be proactive in zoning. We should actually listen to our expertise, get somebody that's an expert about zoning and planning and redevelopment, for the area, for the places. And I would say all of them are important because all the property should increase their value. So I'm not going to take one particular place because all the places in Agawam are important. And I'm going to stress that a lot because that is part of what my platform is. Reinvest in the community, reinvest in the property, and keep the money going, and keep increasing the value of the property, and keep the taxes low. So there is no one place that's less important than the others because I own a property here, I don't own a business here. I don't want to see one or the other, being stressed out or value more. They should all be equally valued. And that's what's going to make the town of Agawam great because of that. And that's going to increase the value. We shouldn't be looking at one individual at all. This should be all looked at. And that is how I'm going to rebuild that. Thank you.
Rebuttal time, Jim.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Shawnee, one thing we definitely do need to do in our community is to create a total zoning review board to look at all of our zoning in town. Our zoning laws and regulations, as Mr. Sapelli's pointed out, we did a study and nobody did anything with it. From the council, I did start to working with that, but there wasn't a flavor for the council or the current administration to move that forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Bill, your question to Jim.
Mr. Schiketti, as a follow-up to that statement you just made with the plan and not being able to move it forward, what steps did you take to try to move that forward, and what obstacles do you feel you ran into that made it so that you couldn't bring that forward?
Thank you, Mr. Sapelli. I started working through the plan. We got through the definitions part of the plan. Then we moved forward to some of the issues of, one of them was certain kinds of pets or animals on certain properties. And at the time when I started working through that, our current inspection services department head actually said it was something that we shouldn't be working with or moving forward with. I went back to the council and tried to work through them. We continued to work through some of it. And again, they just didn't have the flavor. And believe me, I kept trying and trying and trying. But sometimes when you hit a brick wall, it's a brick wall. Thank you.
Bill, rebuttal?
So it sounds like it was lack of communication from the department heads and in some cases members of your own city council trying to push those issues forward.
Okay, gentlemen, this will be the last 3 questions that you get to ask someone. And I'm going to open it up so you can ask whoever you like, as opposed to me telling you who to ask. So, Vac, who would you like to ask your last question to?
I think I'm satisfied with all the questions I asked. I'm going to pass now.
Okay. Jim, would you like to ask one last question?
Yes, Bob, thank you. This question is for Mr. Shawnee. Do you believe that large-scale ground-mounted solar facilities should be allowed on agriculturally zoned property in Agawam?
Well, this is a good debate question, and I think that's been lingering along the way. I think it would be up to the voters as well. Again, I'm going to leave it to them because this is going on their property. Let them vote on what they want to say, or how it's going to look affect the town. So I believe that decision should be made by the people and put on the ballot. Let's see what happens there. Thank you.
Jim, follow-up, rebuttal?
Yes, I feel the large-scale ground-mounted solar facilities should be currently allowed on agricultural land, but in certain areas of town. This is something we're actually currently working with from the council. We're actually have an ordinance in front of us currently. We're doing it through a special permit process, and that special permit process would allow us to be smart and to be proactive about it. Thank you.
Bill, your last question, and who would you like to ask it to?
Mr. Cicchetti, you just talked about special permits with zoning. Might that lead us down that path of spot zoning if we get too carried away with those special permits?
Thank you, Mr. Spelli. No, through a special permit process, that would go through our zoning board of appeals, and of course, that would protect us from spot zoning. One issue that you hear currently a lot about is our spot zoning. The issue, and again, as I said earlier, that we need a zoning review board, and the reason we do need a zoning review board is because our zoning in this town is so ambiguous and outdated that it definitely needs to be looked at. A special permit process, again, makes you go through the planning department, makes you go through the zoning board of appeals to get that special permit, and it actually protects the town from unwanted solar farms or issues, and it will control the spot zoning. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Bob. As I showed you earlier, we do have a zoning review document that was created in 2009, I believe it was. And there were many recommendations in that document that I still see today that weren't realized, and that's what I've been saying, that we have documents and there's no follow-through, no action plans. I know that with this special permitting in agricultural land, that's a move people are trying to make to get the solar arrays put in, and I think that could be dangerous.
Gentlemen, Jimmy Cicchetti, City Council President, Back Chomeny, Agawam business owner, and Bill Sapelli, former Superintendent of Schools. On behalf of the West of the River Chamber, we'd like to thank you for participating in this morning's debate, both the question portion and the Lincoln Douglas portion. I think that we can conclude that you all did an excellent job, and we encourage the folks in our audience and the folks at home to go out and vote on Election Day. The Chamber has done its part in helping to bring some information forward on the candidates, but it's up to the voting public to do their part for democracy and decide which one of you should be the mayor of Agawam. So we wish you all good luck, and the closing statement, yes. We're getting to that, yes. It's not yours, Bob. Yeah. Closing statement, okay, so closing statement, I'll be back, you're first.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and taking time out to be here off your busy schedule, especially early in the morning. I'm looking at half you guys are trying to stay awake, half you guys are trying to eat food all at the same time, and half you guys are just, what's going on? But being that in mind, you know, a vote for me is a vote for the citizen of Agawam. I believe that I can do a lot better, and I'm a unique character. I'm individual. I have no ties or affiliation with anybody. So I'm independent, and I'm actually giving back to the community a lot. And my most promising thing I'm going to make for you is I'm going to pledge to keep the taxes low, work with reinvest in the value of the property, keep it increasing, keeping Agawam prime as a prime real estate property here in Massachusetts as well too. And I'm actually going to be very excited to be here. I'm going to love it because I'll tell you why. I'm also going to implement technology in place because I want to keep everybody up to current and up to date.
Thank you, Mac,
keep communication
for your
open.
closing statement. Jim?
I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank the Chamber for putting this event on, and everybody here, and also my two opponents. It's been a wonderful morning. I will be the strong voice for the residents and the businesses in Agawam in the mayor's office. I'm the only candidate up here again with a combination of experience in the private sector and in municipal government and being a small business owner. I will be the strong leader in the corner office of Agawam, and we need to start scoring touchdowns in this town and moving this town forward. I'm in the prime of my career, and I'm willing to work morning, noon, and night to make Agawam a great place to live, to work, and raise a family. So this is why I'm asking for your vote on October 10th, Tuesday, for the office of mayor. Thank you.
Bill, closing statement?
Thank you, Bob, for moderating. I appreciate it. Robin's in the room somewhere. Thank you, Robin, for organizing this event. A lot of hard work went into it. And thank your wife here for being a timekeeper. I felt like I was on the soccer field with these red cards. You know who I am, you know what I bring to the table. I've got proven leadership. 40 years in the school system, 6 years as superintendent. You all know me, you've dealt with me. You know who I am. I'm transparent, I'm honest, and above all, I'm professional. Something we really need in that mayor's office. Not somebody who's going to take things personally, not somebody who's going to make a decision based on where votes are coming from, but make a decision based on what's best for this community. That's what I bring to the table. I ask for your vote on October 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Gentlemen, on behalf of the Chamber, we wish you well on Election Day, and I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Reichelt to close the program.
We all know, or at least I know from my last experience, how hard it is to get up here in front of all of you and answer these questions, especially Bob, who runs a great show, is going to have you on point the whole time. So let's give another round of applause. Thank you. Sure, before the show ends, another round of applause for our sponsors. Now we have Robert come up and we're going to pull some raffle prizes.
Again, I just want to take this time to thank you all for joining us this morning. Without your support, the Chamber wouldn't be as successful as we are today. So please keep attending these great events and get involved as much as you can with the Chamber. Candidates, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was a great event this morning, and we appreciate all of your support with the Chamber. If we can help you out at all, please, touch base with us and let us know. Bob McDonald, thank you so much. We appreciate, as always, your expertise in the debate field. OMG, thank you for sponsorship. CHH Engraving and East Hampton Bank. Again, thank you all for joining us, and please have a great rest of your day.